Welcome to the Seize the Day weekly podcast, your connection to all things cruising, powered by Travel with Brigitte.
Travel insurance can be your safety net in the event of medical emergencies, cancellations, missed connections, a trip cut short, or any number of reasons. Stick around because we'll cover all of that and more on this episode of the Seize the Day podcast. I'm Julie Williams, along with Travel with Brigitte cruise expert Karla Mesa. And be sure to stick with us until the end because we're going to look into some fine print items that could cost you big if you're not aware of them. Karla, there's so much to know, more to know than I ever imagined about travel insurance. Okay, let's start with, do we really need travel insurance? I mean, like, what if we're young and healthy? Do we still need travel insurance?
Well, absolutely. I would even argue that the young and healthier need it more because we're more prone to taking risks, especially on vacation, having a good time, thinking, oh, I can jump off that ledge. Maybe you can't.
What about the kids?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, the kids aren't going to have a heart attack or anything.
Kids as well, same idea. My son has a new scrape and bruise every day. And, that's just from running in the street. Sometimes when you're in a new place, new environment, a lot of factors that you don't account for and things can happen.
Well, when it comes to travel insurance, is that trip specific, like for this cruise or this trip to Europe, or is it like for 2025, just like for a year or maybe even a longer term?
So you have a lot of options, actually. You can get trip specific policies or either or, and you can also have yearly policies that are kind of blanket coverage. Depending on the trip you're taking and the dollar amount, it's going to really determine what kind of policy you would work best for you.
So we need to have all our numbers together before we make a decision on which type to get, even starting there.
It's a general idea for sure. I mean, you don't have to have the specific number, but like a certain number I can speak to. I personally have a year-long policy that is a blanket policy and very general, good coverage. But if I take a look at the fine print, if for my trip cancellation, trip interruption coverage, it only covers up to $4,000 for the whole trip. So if it's a trip that's worth more than $4,000, I'm going to want to get a trip specific policy to make sure that the rest of that is covered as well.
Sure. And the trip itself might only cost you, say, $3,000. But if you have a medical issue, it's very rare that would be less than $4,000.
Right. So specifically, I was talking about the trip cancellation, trip interruption. That's what's covered under the $4,000. For my specific policy under that year policy, my medical expenses, I believe, are covered up to $50,000.
Okay, I see.
So it's very similar to any other insurance policy, auto, home. There are multiple coverages and different amounts for each coverage.
Mm-hmm. So what about timing? What is the best time to buy the insurance?
The best time to buy the insurance is immediately. And I don't say immediately in the sense that you need to, just click yes to buy the insurance that's already there suggested. You can definitely take some time to do research, but I would say within that 7 to 10 day window is best. Some people might recommend even 2 to 3 weeks, but depending on some factors, certain insurances will only cover you if you buy the policy within 7 to 10 days of your deposit on the trip.
Okay.
So the quicker, the better, but you still can take some time to do research or reach out to a travel agent and, talk about what coverages you think you absolutely need.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of cruise specific, not necessarily other travel. One of the things that they're talking about is if you get coverage already when upon booking and or then the week of booking, and then there's a hurricane. Once that hurricane is named, you're not covered if you haven't already purchased the insurance. But if you have already purchased it, then it's going to be covered fine.
I was going to say yes, because in that circumstance, if you already know something is going to ruin your trip, it's technically fraud. You can't go buy insurance after you've already, done the whatever that you need insured.
When I think of travel insurance, I think of medical reasons, but what if I have a pre-existing condition? Like, let's say I have a heart condition. I could have a heart attack anytime. So what do we do about that? Will that be covered?
Every travel insurance agency, it has different policies, and all policies are different. And you have to really read the fine print. Most of them will have a pre-existing clause section and very specific details around it. Most of them are going to have a 90-day pre-existing conditions allowance, as in if within 90 days of travel, you didn't know about this pre-existing condition, or you weren't already needing to see a doctor for it, you weren't already prescribed medication, you weren't already told by a physician that you probably shouldn't travel, then it will be covered. But outside of those 90 days, then it's not covered.
So what types of things would require like a waiver or, might not be covered?
So again, depending on the specific policy, there are some things that aren't covered, like extreme sports. If you're taking a trip to specifically participate in some type of extreme sport, it may not be covered. I was just reading mine, rock climbing that needs specific equipment and requires like an instructor, not covered. So that would be something where you either need to research some different policy or trip specific policy that will cover something like that. Because again, I'm talking about my blanket year policy here, where it's a very general.
No, I'm sure that scuba diving, parasailing, like you said, jumping off buildings, would not be covered. Could you get coverage for that if you were willing to, pay a lot?
There are many, many different travel insurance companies out there, and I would be surprised if there wasn't one that would cover you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's a niche area. There's definitely a group of travelers out there that's what they dedicate their traveling to, trying new experiences and all that. So I would say with some research, I think we could find one, but we have to do the research to make sure that it's covered.
What kind of exclusions could we find in the policy on trip cancellation insurance?
So one misconception sometimes for people is they think getting travel insurance means that, so if I don't feel like going anymore or I can't afford it anymore, I can just cancel and that's fine. That's not really the case. No, there aren't really any insurances that have, no reason cancellations. That's what we call them. I know there's somewhat of a new insurance company coming out that they are providing some coverage like that, but I believe it's only up to like 70% of your total trip costs. It's still not 100% of your total trip costs.
But there are policies for cancel for any reason, aren't there? I mean, like if you want to pay.
Like I said, that is the only one I have heard of so far, and they are a very, very new company. So it was a shock to see, actually.
Wow. These things can get so complicated.
Yes.
So we don't really want to scare you here, but the bottom line is to go ahead and get your travel agent to do this for you. Why would you say, Karla, that the travel agent should book it for you as opposed to going straight to the cruise line? They have insurance, or finding an insurance company that does travel insurance and booking straight through them.
I would say it's best to go through a travel agent, because not only do we have access to all the different companies and the different policies to find specifically what works for you, but we've already dealt with clients making claims and going through the process if something does go wrong. And we're going to help you with that every step along of the way as well. So that, obviously we're getting our trip insurance and, hoping for the best, is more than likely nothing is going to go wrong, but it's still nice to have someone there for you if something does go wrong and you still have more questions. And, it's a whole process depending on the situation. So having someone there to help you out and that has experience and says, we've done this before and it's all going to be okay, I think is a real, it gives you peace of mind.
One of the things I would point out is, first of all, you having booked many cruises and other travel insurance, you know who gives a problem when it comes to paying. You know who you can trust to, do what they say, who are operating with integrity. And if you call the insurance company, you may not get that. Plus, they only have access to whatever their policies are. And then with the cruise line, they're working for the cruise line. The insurance rep is working for the insurance company. The travel agent is working for you. And it doesn't cost you anything. So you can go jump through all these hoops and look for, all of these exclusions and hope you didn't forget anything. Or you can work with a travel agent who has done this time after time and isn't intimidated by the process. I personally would be very intimidated by the process of trying to figure out which one to buy. Now,
what happens? That happens often where, you might get the trip insurance to, for the peace of mind in case something big goes wrong, and maybe nothing does, but say you lost a wheel on your suitcase and you think to yourself like, well, I already kind of wanted a new one. No big deal. I'm not going to make a claim.
Okay.
I don't want to spend the time to make the claim. That's fine, but we could do that for you. And you have a lot of instances like that where people are like, oh, it's so small, it's not worth my time.
Mm-hmm. What would you caution against buying the cruise line insurance just directly from the cruise line?
So the reason that I don't think that that's really the best idea usually is because you have so many factors outside of just your cruise. You have, if you're taking a flight to get to your cruise, or if you have to stay at a hotel that night before, if you're doing any excursions at the ports, none of that is going to be covered by the insurance the cruise line is offering. They are only offering insurance while you are on their ship.
And I've heard
it not even cover everything that they necessarily offer on their ship as far as, medical help.
Okay.
You could get their insurance policy and still end up with a bill.
I've heard of a situation where somebody had the cruise line insurance, and instead of getting reimbursed for the cruise, which is what regular travel insurance would do, they get a credit for a future cruise or something like that, a travel voucher. And oftentimes that might, and I'm not sure about this, but that might say a credit for a future cruise within like the next year, or, it might even have a deadline on it. I don't know. I just, I'm not the travel agent or insurance expert, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah. Again, every cruise line works differently. Every policy is different. I'm sure they're even different based on the itinerary, based on the voyage length. So that is very likely. I could imagine them doing that for, a short 3 night, 4-day cruise and saying, okay, well, here's your policy. But the way it works is it'll run as credit instead of reimbursement. And again, unless you're reading that fine print, you won't even know until you make the claim.
Right. You know, what my mom would say is that her credit card offers insurance. She, you know, with rental cars, she says that, but with rental cars, it does. But some credit cards might offer travel insurance as a benefit if you book everything with their card. But your regular medical insurance, you might think would cover something that happens. But what do you think about using that insurance?
So we'll start with credit card insurance first. You made a really good point. First of all, yes, your credit card insurance does not activate unless you've used that credit card as the form of payment, which some people don't. It kind of like goes right over their head because, you know, sometimes they'll have the credit card because of all the perks, but they don't actually use it. They say, well, I like to use my debit card. I like to make sure I know my money that's coming in and out. So perk automatically isn't even valid. Second thing with that as well, because it's usually a credit card, you're not going to you are going to be reimbursed, but it's going to be something that happens like on your statement. Very similar to the cruise line. Like we said, it's going to be more of like a credit than, hey, you had to spend X, Y, and Z. Maybe you had to spend it in cash. Maybe you had to spend it, on your debit card for whatever reason. Well, the credit's going to be on your statement. They're not going to send you a check.
Right. So basically it'll go towards your balance. And if you need that money for, next month's mortgage or whatever, it's not going to happen. Or it may not happen.
Their claim, and based on some experience and outside of travel and stuff, their claims process is very, very likely. So even if everything did go on that credit card, credit might not be on that same statement.
Right.
And then you're stuck paying interest.
Why do we need medical insurance at all on a cruise when they have a medical center there? They've got doctors, or at least, one doctor, and they have medical staff on board.
Yes, they do. And you have to pay for it. When you're on the cruise ship, you're on international waters, and 9 times out of 10, your actual medical coverage isn't going to cover them. Not only that, as far as location, but I think most people know as well, if you're seeing someone out of your network, or depending on what kind of medical policy you have, you're going to be charged again for seeing somebody that isn't necessarily part of the blanket coverage of your typical insurance, going to your regular provider in your general area. That's where it's a huge factor as well.
And does the medical coverage cover evacuation, like you see someone got taken by a helicopter to, the closest medical center, stuff like that?
Yes, it does. So back to referencing my year policy, like I said, my medical coverage is up to $50,000, but completely separate from that, my medical evacuation coverage is up to $500,000.
See, it can go that high.
Yes, yeah, it can. And that's the thing is, you want to tell yourself like, okay, that's not going to happen, and I'm not going to end up with that bill, but it could happen, and it really could be that big of a bill.
Mm-hmm.
So spending, the policy I'm referring to is about $385 for the year. I will pay that every year if it means not getting a $500,000 bill because I slipped on a hike and I had to get helicoptered out to, the best hospital or the nearest hospital or back home.
And that would cover you over and over and over again in that time frame if you fell twice on different trips within the year.
Correct. The way the policies work is say something does happen within the year, out of that $500,000, $100,000 is spent. So now for the remainder of the year, I'll have $400,000. So it doesn't just reboot every accident. It'll reboot at the end of the policy when you renew.
I see what you're saying. So it's saying like for this year, you have up to 500,000 in medical evacuation. Okay. All right. And what about you're traveling, say, with your child and you have to be evacuated? What happens to your child?
That's a really good question. That's definitely a question of circumstance. I have to assume in a situation like that, if it's just you two, then obviously they have to go with you. If I wouldn't be on a trip where I'm insured and my child isn't insured, or my even travel partner isn't insured, because say something happens where we're together and there's a circumstance, I'll actually give you a personal story. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard about the earthquakes that happened in Thailand not so long ago. Right. I had two friends there while it happened. They were on a rooftop pool and scared for their lives. Well, fight or flight goes, immediately. One of them held on. The other one ran to the stairs and booked it. And they needed to get back together. But if, say, something happened, say one of them was injured, both of them were injured, one of them had insurance, one of them didn't, one of them's getting sent to either the closest hospital or has no option or feels like they can't even do that. And then the other one with the insurance does, and they get help and they're covered and they can, actually do something about their injury. But because their travel partner didn't feel that they could as well, they just continue to be separated through this process where they both need help.
I heard that the insurance would cover a partner or a child, but that, again, don't count on it. You need to get with your travel agent and investigate that specifically. If you're traveling with a child, it's definitely prudent to do that.
Right. Yes. I would say that in my experience, it will not cover someone else that is not named on the insurance policy. That is my advice, is don't assume at all that because you got yourself an insurance policy that someone that is traveling with you will be covered. More than likely, 99.9%, I'm sure that it's not the case.
Right. And you had mentioned to evacuate you from the cruise ship to the closest facility, like hospital or, whatever. Well, what if that's in a third world country, or you're like in the middle of the Congo, if you're near something where there's not really what we would call top flight emergency care available. Can you go to like another one? Can you choose where you go, or at least what country you're going in?
Depending on your coverage, more than likely, yes. So that's another great determining factor. Obviously, if you don't have insurance, you're still probably going to get medical attention. You're still going to get evacuated. But at that point, you might not have a choice. They're going to say, no, we're taking you to the closest place. This is where we can get you. If they need to, make different decisions from there, that's fine, but we can't do much more than this. When you are covered, depending on the circumstances of where you are and if there's availability and there is somewhere else to take you, yes, you have the say to make that decision.
Yeah, I know that if you have to go further than the closest, it's just going to cost the insurance company more. So I can see why you need to make sure you have coverage for that. It probably wouldn't be automatic. All right, let's say we want to be proactive. We're going on this trip, this cruise, whatever. How can we make sure that we get paid? Because I know there are some places where you don't even get released from the hospital if you haven't paid, and other countries where they won't even treat you if you don't have the money, and it could cost a lot of money. But at least insurance companies, in the US usually take their time or just reimburse. So what can we do to prepare in advance to make sure as we go on that excursion and leave the ship or whatever, that that we're going to be able to have the information and get paid?
Well, it's a great question. Thank you for bringing up that point. So you want to have your insurance policy on you, whether that be a printed copy or a PDF saved to your phone. What a really great thing as well is a lot of these insurance companies are very tech forward now. So they'll have their own app where you can log in and have everything on your phone as well. Some of these companies, you can chat to someone right away and they can be helping. You can be letting them know in real time what is going on, giving them documents that you're receiving in real time. And if you are in a country where it needs to be paid first or, half days due, they can actually take care of that for you. And again, you can also be talking to your travel agent if there's an issue with, internet and trying to get a hold of the insurance company as well.
Once again, the travel agent working for free for you. What about deductibles? I mean, here, for any kind of insurance we have in the States, car insurance, medical insurance, it seems like there's always a deductible.
Yes. So with travel insurance, it's a little different. There are some deductibles, but it's not really for like the medical stuff. It's more for the smaller things like I said, like luggage or, car rental, discrepant, if it's an accident and you're at fault, there's more than likely going to be a deductible there. So you're not gonna pay a copay or like $15 because I had to go see the doctor. Nothing like that.
So what if we bought our policy and we see that a certain thing that we really need wasn't covered and we kind of missed that? Is there a time frame that we can do something about it, or are we pretty much stuck with it? And when we're looking over the policy, what is it we're looking for?
Yes, actually. So there is a specific law pertaining to that, and it basically states that you have a certain time frame to, deep dive into your insurance policy and cancel if necessary. Specifically with the one that I work with, it's called Chug. It's 15 days. It's called the 15-day look. Mm-hmm. So you have 15 days from the time the policy was instated to go over everything and make sure that you're happy with the coverage. And if you're not, you can cancel and a full refund. Okay. Every insurance policy is different. I don't believe they have to give you a full 15 days. I believe the minimum number is only 7. Mm-hmm. And it actually may be determined by your state, because they have a lot of different state laws that are very specific to insurance.
And this is something we need to do right away, but what do we look for?
I would specifically look at what is considered an acceptable trip cancellation reason, and then what isn't. I would especially look at all your exclusions. That's going to be usually a much shorter page than all the actual coverage. And then depending on what you're doing on your trip, I would also just look at the very specifics, like you mentioned, the car rental. If you're renting a car, make sure you actually look at what's covered there. If you don't want to be shocked if you do have to pay a deductible for XYZ reasons. I was going to say I would also pay attention to, like we've talked about before, the pre-existing conditions as well.
So I know some people, and I don't think it was an excursion, but they went somewhere on a cruise and they rented they rented little like Vespas or motorcycle things. And one of the women fell and got all scraped up. I don't think she had to be evacuated or anything, but I wonder if that's covered because they're renting a vehicle in another country.
So are you asking if that would be covered, like just like medically, like her getting patched up, or like the vehicle?
Well, I guess both. I was thinking about her getting patched up, like would the insurance maybe cover for the medical center on the cruise or the first aid station that they might have at the port?
Yes, that would be covered for sure. More than likely, vehicle, if something was damaged on that end, it more than likely would not be. But that's also something usually when you're doing an excursion like that, they're going to have you sign, their own waivers or their own insurance, policy acknowledgement type thing.
Right. Now, listening to this podcast or watching this podcast on YouTube, your head might be swimming with all of this information. I mean, okay, probably nothing's going to go wrong, right? Most of the time, nothing goes wrong or nothing major goes wrong. But in the event something does go wrong, you need coverage that actually covers you. We've all had experiences with insurances of different kind that, disappointed us. But this isn't a lesson on how to buy travel insurance. Okay. That's kind of a disclaimer, because I'm sure we missed something. I mean, there's so many things to know, so many things to look out for and consider with your travel agent when you're choosing insurance. But remember, this doesn't have to be your job. Okay. It's overwhelming. At least it would be to me. Get your travel agent to help you and advise you, because this is his or her job and it doesn't cost you anything. And they're not overwhelmed by it because they do it all the time. But missing something critical because you just chose what the insurance representative suggested, that could cost you big time. Karla, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I would just say definitely reach out if you want to do your own research. That's more than welcome as well. There are so many different travel insurance companies out there with different types of policies that we're still learning about every day. Like I said, there's a new one on our radar. They're called Say. And so that's the first one that I've heard of so far, and it has their canceled for any reason. So this is definitely an industry that there's a lot to learn about.
So whether you're looking for add-on flexibility, medical coverage that is going to actually cover you, cancellation or misconnection insurance, or other perks, there's an unlimited, infinite number of things you need to get covered. You've got to know what you're getting. Times of emergencies, not the time to get surprised by your coverage, right? On behalf of Travel with Brigitte and the entire Seize the Day team, I'm Julie Williams, along with Karla Mesa, encouraging you to seize the day.
You've been listening to the Seize the Day podcast, powered by Travel with Brigitte. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. And as always, feel free to ask us anything in the comments section. We love to hear from you. Or email us at bookings@travelwithbrigitte.com. Till next time, seize the day.